Today's episode of the Bill Simmons Podcast, as always, brought to you by SeatGeek, our presenting sponsor. The easiest way to shop for the best tickets thanks to their revolutionary grading system. No NBA tickets right now, but I wish we could buy tickets for everything that's happening right now. This is incredible. Everything fully guaranteed on SeatGeek. Right now, my listeners get $10 off baseball tickets the first time they use SeatGeek. You first-timers, go use SeatGeek. Use promo code BSMLB and download the SeatGeek app right now or go right to SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by Hotel Tonight, an app that helps you find amazing hotel deals at the last minute, up to 7 days in advance, perfect for a spontaneous getaway or indulging in a little staycation. Booking on Hotel Tonight gives you the freedom and flexibility to play things by ear while knowing you'll score a great price and a great place to stay. We almost need an NBA trades tonight because that's how fast these trades are going. Spontaneous trades. Get in on these killer last minute deals. Download the Hotel Tonight app right now. And we're brought to you by TheRinger.com, where we're having Good Bad Movies Week. Today, Shea Serrano wrote a piece declaring Nick Cage the king of good bad movies. I wanted to disagree with it, but I think he might be right. I think there is a case to be made for Keanu Reeves, but I think Keanu, the fact that he's actually made good movies over the last 15 years might disqualify him. But read that, check that out. Good Bad Movies Week. It's really fun. And also, obviously, the NBA draft. Our NBA draft guide is spectacular. We have NBA content constantly. It's like a broken water faucet, just shooting NBA content out. This podcast, I think we're going to do 4 this week. The people want it. We did one yesterday with, we broke down the Boston Philly trade with Kevin O'Connor and Chris Ryan and Mark Titus and my dad, who came in about as hot as he's ever come in on the podcast. Spent 90 minutes breaking that trade down. I gave my verdict at the end. So if you missed that, check that out. Today, we're going to talk to Malcolm Gladwell. I think we're going to do one tomorrow, too, and then Friday. So 4 pods this week for your listening pleasure. And also, I'm also on Cousin Sal's Against All Odds, because we're going to be breaking down NBA draft odds, because you can bet on the NBA draft, which is incredible. But if you haven't subscribed to that one, it's Against All Odds with Cousin Sal, and we're putting that one up tonight. So I'm with you all week. Here I am. 5-6 hours of podcast content for you. Still not even half as much as what Adam Carolla is doing. I found out this weekend that Adam Carolla now is adding another podcast. He has like 14 podcasts. I think he's doing like 17, 18, 20 hours of radio a week, podcast style. So I feel even doing 6, I feel completely inferior, and probably better to spend 6 hours with me than 20 hours with Carolla. I've driven from Vegas with Carolla, and that took 4 hours, and that was a long drive, and he talked the whole time. But anyway, 4 BS podcasts this week, and then Against All Odds with Cousin Sal. And we will have every possible NBA draft take you've ever wanted to hear. We're also on Thursday night. We're doing a bunch of videos as well. Tate, are you doing Teed Up this week? Friday. All right. Tate and Titus are doing Teed Up on the Ringer U podcast on Friday. So if you want to hear them. Titus approaches it from the fans' perspective, doesn't care about the fortunes of the team or any of that stuff. All right. Malcolm Gladwell coming up right now. First Pearl Jam. All right, Malcolm Gladwell on the line. He just launched season 2 of his Revisionist History podcast, which will actually, let's just talk about it now. You did 10 again?
I did 10. First one aired every Thursday for the next 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Episode 2 airs on Thursday. Episode 1, I took on golf. I was very excited about that.
Well, hold that, because I want to talk about that, because okay. I have a lot of thoughts on why rich white people play golf. Let's talk about basketball first, because this is, every year we say this is the craziest week in the NBA offseason we've ever had, but this is particularly crazy because since last Friday, just shit's been happening constantly, and it just never ends. Like, right, we're taping this right now, 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, Tuesday morning. And 5 minutes before I went to call you, all this Porzingis Knicks stuff broke.
What?
That they might trade him. Yeah, that just happened. This is how fast it's moving these days.
Oh my
The
goodness.
Celtics are in. Celtics are interested. They're making a run. I have never seen anything like this. And basketball has finally mastered what it took Roger Goodell and Paul Tagliabue and all those guys so long to do. Is it's turned itself into an 11-month sport.
Yeah.
It's all the seeds were planted, starting with the decision in 2010, and then each year it got more and more fun. And now it's like people are more excited for the offseason than the finals. The finals were fun, but people love this stuff more.
You guys have not. I've been looking on the Ringer. You run as many basketball stories now in the offseason as you were during the season.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And we don't know if we're running enough. We're probably light. We should probably have more. People want to read it. I'm doing 4 podcasts this week. People love this stuff. And so I have some theories. I'm interested in your thoughts on this. One of my theories is that I just think people care about NBA players. So you have baseball, like Mike Trout's hurt right now. And he's the best player in baseball, and he might be the best player ever. Who the hell knows? He's way up there. I turned on Fox the other day, and he was being interviewed in the dugout because he's hurt. And it took me 3 seconds to realize it was Mike Trout. And I'm thinking whether it's Damian Lillard, Jimmy Butler, all of these guys, they're so famous, and everybody has strong opinions on them.
Yeah.
And now it's this league where you have almost 40 to 45 guys that, whether you're a casual fan, hardcore fan, whatever, you just know and you care about. Do you ever remember anything like this?
No, I think and added to that, this is a special year because the draft does seem insanely deep. And once, when the draft is deep, if the draft has twice as many potentially great players as normal, it doubles the amount of, it's not even doubling. It's exponentially increasing the number of scenarios on draft day, leading up to draft day.
Yeah.
So it's the conversation is now you need to have you need Watson to keep track of all the possibilities for this week. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is probably the best top 10 of a draft we've had since the late 90s, where, we were talking about it yesterday in the podcast, where you might end up getting the best player in the draft with the 8th pick. You just don't know. There's definitely a top 4, but nobody would also rule out the other things. But then you have, the player empowerment, which really started in the 70s. I think it's the impact of the decision's been a little overblown because Kareem decided he wanted to play for the Lakers in 1975 and they had to trade him there. This has been going on. Wilt changed teams twice. He decided he wanted to leave and go somewhere else, and it happened. So it's not, LeBron didn't create this, but I think what's different about now is how fast we can get information.
Yeah.
That the game of it now, the fact that I have to look at my Twitter feed at 11 o'clock at night to make sure nothing happened, that I didn't miss anything, that's what's different. And so the decision coincided with that, but I don't think it changed it. What do you think?
Well, what's interesting is the parallel with what's going on in politics. That what you're seeing with the Trump administration is because everything leaks, you're getting a totally different perspective on how politics works and how the White House works.
Yeah.
So we now see decision making in real time. And what we see now is, I think I'm going to do this. No, I'm not. I'm going to do this. No, that's a bad idea. I'm going to talk to this person. A generation ago, you never saw that run up. All you saw was the final decision. So you had an appearance of coherence and statesmanship, and everything seemed very deliberate. It's just because you weren't in on all the confusion that leads up to the decision. Now, in the NBA, you have the equivalent of leaking, right? Everything's leaked. Yeah. If Danny Ainge has a thought bubble at 7 a.m. shaving, we know about it by 7:30. It's incredible. So it's once you're going to expose all of the steps that lead up to a decision, then you've multiplied the kind of excitement in the political realm, you've multiplied the amount of time we spend about politics. And in the basketball realm, you've multiplied the kind of the fun for the fan.
I never saw the parallel, but you're 100% right. the way people follow politics these days is no different than NBA fans this week, where they're just checking to make sure nothing happened. Now, in this case, like the future of the country and possibly the world is at stake all the time. And it's like, oh, no, Trump's mad at North Korea. Oh, my God, I got to keep checking to make sure, this didn't happen. But yeah, it's the same beast. And I wonder, do you worry about this constant flux of information and half tidbits and half truths and rumors and this might be happening and here this and now this, and is it going to make all of us dumber? Is it too much information?
I don't know if it makes us dumber because you'll tune out. We'll tune out. I mean, we're experiencing this for the first time. It may well be we'll get tired of it. And the next time there's a deep draft and a million playoff scenarios and what have you, we're just not going to consume it in the same way. Same thing with, I think we're going to get Trump fatigue. And maybe the next president comes along, we're just going to want someone who's really boring. And people will try and leak stuff and the press won't even jump at it. They're like, who cares? But now, we've never been in a situation where we know what TV shows the president is watching at night and like how he's responding and what he's TiVoing. The fact that he TiVos, by the way, is so fantastic.
Yeah, TiVo, I liked it.
He literally TiVos. I mean, it is like my mom doesn't TiVo. Just so we're clear, my 86-year-old mom does not TiVo. She has moved on from that particular technology.
Wow.
But
I remember buying the TiVo lifetime subscription, and I think I had to cancel the credit card to stop paying for it.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, long time ago.
I just don't know whether we're going to be this. It's just novel now.
I think the sports thing is going to stay as passionate and maybe even gain steam each year. But the Trump fatigue, you're already seeing it. Like Sean Spicer gave a press briefing where he didn't allow video or audio.
Yeah.
That's insane. Nixon wouldn't have done that. And people, it just is starting to bounce off people now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a press briefing that nobody's allowed to record it in any way. What is that? Nixon would have rejected that.
By the way, how do you stop someone from recording? Are they taking away their phones? I mean, the whole thing it's like there aren't a million ways to record these days. Doesn't really make any sense to me.
I don't know. I don't understand. All right, so LeBron James.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many different opinions of the same person. Mm-hmm. For ranging from how smart he actually is, whether he has a master plan, whether there was real thought put into this in a really substantial way, or if he kind of flies by the seat of his pants. I don't know what to make of it, but starting in 2010, he switches teams. He goes to Miami. At the time, everybody was appalled and horrified, and just people didn't do that. You didn't play with your enemy. Now I think we've almost been softened to the whole concept. But goes back to Cleveland in 2014, and it's all about I'm coming home, back to finish what I started. That I mean so much to the people of Ohio. I'm going to do all these great things for everybody here. Now there's momentum that he might be leaving again. And he might be going to LA. He wants to be a businessman. He wants to be a billionaire. He wants to own a team. What do you make of all this?
Well, it's a good deal. Again, let's put it in broader perspective. The exact same thing has been happening with employment patterns in the general economy over the last generation. Our parents had one job with one company for their entire lives. The current, millennials do not. They move around, right? That's that kind of labor force or inter-organization mobility is one of the signature features of the modern economy. Why would we expect basketball players to be any different? I mean, LeBron's just doing what everyone else is doing. And he's acting in his own self-interest as he should. And going back to Cleveland was an absolutely brilliant. It was brilliant on so many different respects. It changes our understanding and appreciation of him. But I don't think does anyone expect him to finish his career there? Why would he? He should go and go.
I kind of half expected it, to be honest. Really? It never dawned on me that he might jump ship again until recently. Because I felt like it seemed like he was so consumed with his legacy and what things meant that maybe that legacy was like he went to Miami for 4 years. It was almost like going to college. He graduated, then he came back to Cleveland. But now you throw the Lakers into it, and now it's just this. It's not a nomadic career, but it's definitely a career that has different stages, right? Where it's like he was there, then he went there, then he went there, and now
here's the thing, Bill.
It's four moves.
Here's the thing that I'm sure even he is surprised by, and that is, under the normal expectation, you would have expected his career to end in Cleveland because he's got a huge number of minutes in him. He's in his early 30s. He's going to ride into the sunset. But he's LeBron, and he's not riding into the sunset. He just had as good a playoff series as any player in the history of the game. It's clear he maybe can play for another 5 years, right? So the fact that his career is probably a third longer than we would have expected when he started playing means that all of these expectations we have about where he's supposed to end his career don't work. Even he may have thought, I'm done in Cleveland because I'm gonna retire at 34. He's not retiring at 34, right? He could still be
Right.
He could still be maybe the best player in the game 2 seasons from now. Is there any reason to believe that's not the case?
Well, so our generation is like the guys were loyal. You played your whole time with the team, as you said. Like I grew up with Yaz on the Red Sox for 23 years. By the end, he's just this guy, old grizzled guy who's pissed off. He never won the World Series. He's smoking at his locker after games, and runs the lap around Fenway Park, and that's what we grew up with. But I wonder if LeBron in 2010 and how Cleveland turned on him and burned his jerseys, and they ripped the big sign in the building down, and all the heat he took. And now you look at all these other guys that have moved since, including Durant and OKC, and how the fans were so mad at him and all that stuff. I wonder if the guys after that, the younger guys watching this, it's almost like they've gotten their master's degree on loyalty in sports.
Yeah.
And they realize like the moment you're not on, all these people love you, they wear your jerseys, all that stuff. The moment it turns, they're out. They hate you. And it's like, why are you devoting your whole life to playing for this one team when the moment the relationship flips, they're going to turn on you? So screw it. I'm in it for myself. And I wonder if that's been a pivotal change this decade. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'd say something slightly different, which is that there's a second understanding of, see, it was always the case that every fan had 2 ways of appreciating basketball. You have your team that you root for, and then you have a generalized appreciation of the game. So, maybe you're an Indiana fan, but you watch the Warriors last season, and you'd like, how can you not love watching them, right? So you have that kind of double. And I think what's happened historically through basketball, the appreciation you had for your own team was paramount. That was the big deal. And then you had a kind of, and the love of basketball thing was secondary. I think that maybe is flipping. And so if LeBron moves to LA and puts together a team that's capable of challenging the Warriors, maybe that's okay in an era where our desire to see great basketball is greater than our kind of loyalties to our home team.
Yeah.
Because I'm certainly in that. I mean, I would rather see. Do I want to see LeBron put together a super team to challenge the Warriors? Absolutely. I mean, I would. And if he managed to pull that off, my estimation of him would double. I mean, I just think that'd be fantastic.
Well, you're smarter than me, so you know what the best analogy for this is. I do feel like the Warriors and everything that happened this season and how invincible they looked has thrown the NBA into flux.
Yeah.
And I don't know what a parallel would be to this in business or politics or whatever, but they were so good in that finals. And here's LeBron and the Cavs. LeBron's still in his prime. Kyrie's the best offensive guard, not just in the league right now, but maybe all time, for his ability to just get any shot he wants. Kevin Love is still a top 25 guy. Thompson's a good rebounder. They have bench guys who have played well in big games. They have a good coach. And the Warriors wax them. And it literally threw the NBA into flux. You have the Celtics who, have this lottery pick and all the cap space and all these different ways to immediately become a finals contender. And they're kind of straddling the line and they don't know what to do. And they're like, should we go all in now or should we wait until somebody gets hurt on the Warriors, basically?
Yeah.
And then you have LeBron, who has this awesome roster and he's already looking ahead to the next roster. And he's on a team with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and Tristan Thompson. So everything that's happening right now, it just seems like it's almost like somebody took the NBA like it was a snow globe and shook it.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's just chaos. So what where has that happened in other realms of life?
Well, Amazon is just about to do that to the grocery business. I don't know if that's a particularly useful
No, that's
analogy.
perfect. You're right. Amazon is doing that to the grocery business. You're right.
I mean, when Amazon bought Whole Foods, the stocks of every other major supermarket chain just declined catastrophically, right? I mean,
yeah.
They're like, what? It's the same thing. It's like, we're in this incredibly complicated business where there was this reasonable parity. And all of a sudden, a very, 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 very big player has come in. And there's just if you're Kroger, what chance do you have of competing against Amazon if Amazon makes an aggressive move into this, or as is what they're doing, making an aggressive move into this market? Sort of similar. I mean, it's very, I'm agnostic. If someone else like LeBron or the Celts does not put together a credible challenge to the Warriors in the next couple of years, it's going to have really serious consequences for the game. Short-term consequences, but you're already aren't you? I mean, you know infinitely more about basketball than me, but we're already getting to a situation where there's really only a small number of games on any given night during the season are consequential, even at the beginning of the season, right?
Yep.
There's just is there any reason to watch a Magic Pelicans game in November unless you're a diehard fan of the Magic or the Pelicans? It's sort of not.
Well, so the basketball junkies would watch all that stuff. The ratings were really good for the finals. That's been the red herring of this whole thing is that people like dominant teams. Yeah. MJ in 96, 97, 98, even though the product wasn't that good at the time and it was too low scoring and the talent pool was as shallow as it had been in a long time, his Bulls Jazz games, those finals were huge ratings because people love dominance. I think the problem for the NBA, the finals is fine, 5 games, but if you really love the NBA, I don't know how you don't watch those games and aren't just blown away by the talent on the floor. I tweeted that it was like watching an all-star game where the guys tried, and I really think, I said this to Durant when we did the podcast last week, I really felt like the two teams brought the best out of each other.
Yeah.
Like the Cavs brought the best out of Durant. That's the best he's ever played. That was, I thought, the best I've ever seen Curry play. And that was probably the best Kyrie and LeBron have played offensively. And that those are all good things. The problem for the NBA is those first 3 rounds where you have Golden State just sweeping teams and winning by 20 a game. That's, I think, where it hurts them a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. During your signature, the whole season is building up to this signature window in the spring where you're getting a disproportionate share of your revenues, where you're generating fan interest, and basically one half of the draw is a joke. It was problematic.
I had somebody email me. They counted it, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the reader, but he said I think we're 79 playoff games this year, and 16 of them were really fun to watch.
Wow.
Out of 79, so it's like 20%. That was a little appalling. But here's what I take solace in, and I would urge everyone to remember this. The NBA has been at this point so many times over the years where we've looked at a team and we're like, oh my God, nobody's going to beat them. Oh, what do we do? That's happened. It happened, multiple times in the 80s. I think with the 86 Celtics when they lost the Len Bias pick. So there was a little more than a little bad luck in that scenario. But after the 86 finals, people were like, what are we going to do? How do we beat this team? They're bigger than everybody. They have Larry Bird. They have the number 2 pick coming. This is impossible. And we've seen this happen year after year, not year after year, but 2-3 times a decade.
Yeah.
Shaq and Penny looked invincible. Shaq and Kobe in the 2000s, when they won in 2001 and they went 15-1 in the playoffs, all of us were like, the decade's screwed. It's over.
Yeah.
What do we do? So, the forces of the NBA that make it so compelling include injury luck, which hits everybody, egos, the salary cap, guys just not getting along. Like, there's a lot of things that could happen.
And
so I would urge everybody not to write the decade off yet.
The other thing that's different in this environment is when you have billionaires owning teams, the luxury tax ceases to matter as much. So there's no reason. So Steve Ballmer, who is worth, what is he worth? 35 billion, whatever, I don't know, 20 billion.
Yeah.
There's really no reason. If he wanted to make a run and assemble an extremely good team and pay an egregious luxury tax, he totally could. There's no reason not to, right? I mean, he wouldn't even miss the cash. So that's when you effectively, the luxury tax for certain teams is really meaningless at this point, which means that you do have there is a mechanism in place for other people to create very expensive super teams. I'm actually surprised. Ballmer, what's he hanging on to his cash for? He's really into basketball. He really wants to win. Even if he went over the luxury tax by a factor of 10, he could still not even dent his fortune. Like, he doesn't even notice the cash. If he's got 40 billion, he's generating, conservatively $2 billion a year, right? Just by sitting at home.
Yeah.
Why not spend a couple, a tiny, tiny slice of that on assembling the greatest team you possibly can and screw the luxury tax?
I have some thoughts on this. Hold on, we're going to take a quick break. Let's talk about our longtime buddies at Simply Safe. Getting a good night's sleep is easier said than done, especially when you think you just heard a noise downstairs. What do you do in that situation? Turn on all the lights and keep watch? Check your kids' beds every hour? Sleep with one eye open? Nah. You can rest easy knowing your home and family are protected with Simply Safe. When you install your Simply Safe home security system, you're arming your home with powerful sensors that actually tell you if a door opens or if one of your windows breaks. There's a 105 decibel siren that alerts you at the first sign of trouble. You'd also have a dedicated team of security professionals watching over you 24/7, ready to send something to the police. With Simply Safe, there are no long-term contracts, and around-the-clock monitoring is only $14.99 a month. Don't spend another night second-guessing your home safety. Get Simply Safe. Get some rest. Go to simplysafebs.com and get a 10% special discount when you order today. That is Simply Safe with two eyes. simplysafebs.com for 10% off your order. Back to Malcolm Gladwell. All right, we're back. So this is interesting. This is a fun topic because the Daily News just wrote a really good piece about the Brooklyn Nets trade in 2013 with the Celtics that basically shaped this next decade for the Celtics, all these lottery picks they got. And it's this trade that, because certain narratives take hold and then they go and they kind of spiral into one direction or the other, then a new narrative takes place. And at the time, when they made that trade, this was the absolute apocalyptic worst case scenario for how it was going to turn out, right? So they make this trade in the summer of 2013. They already had Darren Williams, who at that time was still considered one of the best point guards. They had Joe Johnson, who is an overpaid but very effective all-star two guard. Mm-hmm. They had Brook Lopez, who was a very good low post center. And they were adding Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, dumping Gerald Wallace's contract because that had been a bad move. And they gave up 3 first-round picks. And then, on top of that, this little pick swap that nobody noticed that was a throw-in at the last second. So when they did this, first of all, the going rate to get rid of a terrible contract was 2 first-round picks, because I think Golden State had just done that with when they'd gotten rid of Richard Jefferson and Andres Biedrins. So, people looked at it and said, wow, the Celtics just basically blew up their team. The best 2 players they had in the team in the last 20 years. Paul Pierce, the best longtime Celtic they had really since Larry Bird. And they just said, fuck it, and got rid of it and pressed the reset button. And they did it with a team that was already a contender, the Nets, and that was spending a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And so, and I was on TV when it happened. And at the time, we only had the information that there were 3 first-round picks. The pick swap thing wasn't in the mix yet. We didn't know if the picks were unprotected. And I just felt like, wow, they just gave away Pearson Garnett and they took Gerald Ross's contract, and they got these 3 picks that, what's going to happen with them? The Nets, Prokhorov spending $150 million a year on his team. This is ridiculous. Now, what they didn't count on, and what this Daily News piece did as such a great thing about breaking out, was that the Nets the next year, they made the playoffs. It didn't go as well as planned. Darren Williams was terrible. And Prokhorov just changed his mind.
Yeah.
And he said, we're spending too much money. Screw this. So the Nets do this 180. Now they're trying to not go over the luxury tax. And, and that leads to where the Celtics are now, where they're just cherry picking these picks because Prokhorov doesn't care anymore. He doesn't care about the team. He just doesn't want them to pay the luxury tax.
Yeah.
So my point is, when you have rich billionaires who buy an NBA team and then change their mind on a moment's notice on why they either wanted the team or what they're spending or all that, that adds even more flux.
Yeah.
The Nets in 2013 were going to be this crazy spender. Not a lot different than Paul Allen in 1999 through 2003, the Trailblazers, remember?
Yeah.
That was the most expensive roster. And then, like all rich people, who's like, screw this. I don't want to spend this money anymore. We're changing our strategy. Well, it's like, that's great, but you've already given away your first round picks and done all this stuff. So I wonder, like, the more rich people that we have in there, if we're going to see wild swings one way or the other. Like, you're right. Ballmer might look at this and go, I'm moving into a new arena in 5 years. We have a chance to steal some Lakers real estate. I want to spend more money.
Yeah.
Or he might look at it and go, I can't compete with the Lakers. Let's scale back. Like, who knows? These guys are billionaires. They change their mind every two years.
What's hilarious, though, is when a billionaire these guys decide, you know what, I can't pay that extra 30 million or whatever on the luxury tax. It's so hilarious because, of course, for them to be worried about 30 million is ludicrous. It's like a normal person being worried about $100. It's $100 is not nothing, but I mean, you wouldn't change your life for $100 to save $100. You'd be like, oh, well, whatever. These guys, they pretend that this matters. It always cracks me up. It's almost as if they wake up one morning and they forget they've got 30 billion in the bank, and they're still like 18 and in college.
Here's how this was explained to me 5 years ago during the NBA lockout, or 5.5 years ago, whenever that was, by somebody who was very close to the proceedings. I was like, why do these owners care? You remember at the time it was a big thing about the rev share split, 50-50, and the owners are really trying to screw the players, and they had the hammer because they all have money, and the players, once they start missing paychecks, it's a disaster. So I asked, like, why do these owners care if they lose $2 million in a season? Like, they own this asset that they bought, that the NBA franchise values don't go down. If anything, they're going to go up. Now we're moving toward this era with internet streaming. Who the hell knows? Like, these are great investments. Why would they care if it's like, oh, I lost $1 million this year, I lost $2 million? Why are they so desperate to swing it so they don't have any losses? And the person explained to me, because these are rich people who are super competitive, and it bothers them if they invest in anything or own anything, and they get this sheet of paper at the end of the year and it says you've lost $1.4 million. It just bothers them. That's the reason they're rich, because they can't accept that piece of paper. They want to flip it, and it makes sense, right? Like, Ballmer looks at this and goes, I'm worth 30 billion. It bothers me that the Clippers lost 12 last year and we got out of round 2. I have to fix this. I want to make money and be competitive.
But even a lot of these guys, if they were purely rational, I'm sure from a tax perspective, could use the losses on their teams, and the losses are very useful to them.
Right.
So it's like, it's not even economically rational. It's just their ego saying,
it's 100%.
Yeah.
But we've talked about this for years. You own an NBA team because of ego. Like, somebody was telling me at the finals, they were like, wow, the Warriors, Lacob, he bought that team for $450 with his group. Now it's probably worth $3 billion. And I said, It's actually worth 5 because there's no way he sells this team if the number doesn't have a 5 in front of it. And even then, he probably doesn't sell it because, these Warriors games, especially in the playoffs and especially in the finals, it's a huge dick swinging contest.
Yeah.
And if you're the owner of the Warriors and you're surrounded by all these other billionaires, and hey, there's the guy that owns Salesforce, and hey, there's Eddie Q from Apple, and you have all these rich dudes and powerful dudes in this court, but you own the team. And you own the arena. You have the biggest dick in the arena. So he's not selling. You can't put a price on that. He already has money. What money are you going to offer him? What's he going to do with it?
If I gave you $5 billion after taxes right now, would you turn around and offer it and go to Joe Lacob and say, "Can I buy the team?"
Is that your revisionist history season 2, buddy? I'll take it. Yeah, no, I would love one of my dumb NBA rich guy dreams would be if some rich guy just openly and publicly said, I just want to own the Warriors. I know I'm completely overpaying. I know it's ridiculous, but today I offered Joe Lacob $5 billion for the Warriors. I would love to see how Joe Lacob reacted to this because I don't think he would sell. I really don't. He loves it. He loves sitting courtside and owning the Warriors. I don't think you can put a price on it.
Yeah. That would be kind of hilarious.
All right. So we have some other stuff on our agenda.
All right.
I'm looking at the list.
Brady?
Do we even want to talk about the fact that Tiger Woods has been addicted to painkillers from some time? It seems like that.
The bottom line is clearly his back is in a lot worse shape than we realized, and he's in a lot of pain. And like a lot of people who are in a lot of pain, it's super easy to get hooked on these painkillers. I thought that it was really important for him when he got in that traffic stop for him to say this wasn't alcohol. So that was really, really important. His life is hard right now, but it's not hard because, he has some addiction, some drinking problem that he hasn't had. No, he's going through something that a lot of people in this country go through, the intersection of chronic pain and the drugs we use to treat them, which is, that is a whole, that is one complicated, difficult thing. He just deserves our sympathy. He really does.
I 100% agree. This is 9 years.
Yeah. That
it seems like he's been in pain. And I wonder, that's a long road. I wonder how this plays out for him. I don't know. Does he?
Kerr also had a back operation. And that was so painful that he couldn't even coach his team in the final. Imagine all the things that would have to happen to keep Steve Kerr from being on the sideline during the NBA playoffs with one of the greatest teams in history of the NBA. That's how much pain he was in. I mean, and some distance. When did he have his surgery? Some time ago. It wasn't recent, right?
Oh, yeah. He had it almost 2 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, backs.
His thing is they can't even figure out how to stop the pain with Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
It's like there are no drugs that make him feel better. It's just this constant spinal fluid leak that they can't figure out how to stop. And they said this week that he's going to spend the summer traveling around just trying to figure out if there's some sort of miracle cure to make him feel better. I think he felt better enough to coach those last couple games, but he's still not happy.
Yeah.
And it does seem like the reason I brought up Tiger is it seems like his body has been just a physical train wreck since 2008.
Yeah.
And I don't remember a more high profile case of painkiller addiction with an athlete. Remember Brett Favre had it for a year and it was a big deal. It's like, oh, Brett Favre, wow, he's addicted to painkillers. I'm sure this is happening way more than we realize, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what this leads me to? I had this really I went running with Henry Abbott, one of your old ESPN colleagues from way back. And Henry made this really interesting point about how he thinks and you've made the same argument, but he was even more radical. He was like, they play way too many games in the NBA. And because the physical toll, we don't have a proper understanding of the physical toll it's taking on these people's bodies. They're starting to play earlier. They're playing competitive basketball for many more hours, much earlier in their lives. And then when they make the pros, They're playing at a higher level for longer, and that's not sustainable. And you can't, and this is not just basketball, across the realm of elite sports, we set our expectation of how many times someone should play in a season at a time when the games or the sports were just not as demanding. And when people weren't starting when they were 5 years old. You can't play as many basketball games in 2017 as you played in 1970. I mean, it's preposterous. And you shouldn't be adding games to the football season. You should be subtracting games from the football season. It's just not. And what we're seeing with Kerr and Tiger is just it's a function of that. These guys played very difficult sports at a high level for a long time, and they hit a wall, right?
It's not just that. It's the conditioning / workouts that you have to do to stay at that level. That's what sunk Tiger.
Yeah.
Like his knees started going because he put too much muscle on his body, and that led to his back going, and then it just, your body's like a building. It just starts to break down.
Yeah.
There's been some exceptions to this, but for the most part, it does seem like you look at somebody like Dwight Howard, who's just built differently than some of the guys that we grew up watching, and he started having back problems in the prime of his career, and it kept going. And like the Celtics Lakers 30 for 30 was on, they kept running it over the weekend, and when you watch it, you're just struck by the bodies.
Yeah.
Just skinny guys running around wearing Converses, and now it's like everybody's built like a wide receiver or a tight end, and they're wearing perfect equipment, and they're playing as hard as possible on both ends. I'm with you. Like I thought it was fascinating when LeBron in the playoffs, when he had rest, how great he was. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to my friend Hershey about it, and we were both like, rested LeBron is the scariest player of all time. It's like LeBron with 5 days rest is the most terrifying force the NBA has ever had. And what would happen if they went to a Premier League schedule where they just played twice a week, and we always got rested LeBron, and every game mattered? They would never do it because it's too much money, but
is it, Bill? I don't. This is so. Henry was talking about this, and he convinced me it's not too much money, because now we've moved from a situation where the owners were getting a majority of their revenue from the gate to a situation where it's national TV money that's being driven by a small number of competitive games. That's where their money lies now. They could cut. They're not going to. It'll make a marginal difference in their bottom line, but you can cut 20 games out of the season, and it is not economically the end of the world, because
because the cable would really hurt them. One of the reasons that the values has bumped up is because of the local cable deals a lot of these teams have, especially if they own a piece of the network. And these networks, because live sports is one of the only things where the ratings hasn't really dropped that much, they all want content. That's why baseball, a sport that everybody's been trying to write off for years and years, is booming economically because of all the local deals, right?
Yeah,
so
but Bill,
I think they could cut. I think they cut 12 games. I think they go to 70. I don't know if they could go lower than that.
Well, I mean, you can go as low as you want, right? The question is how much do you value the health of your players and the kind of integrity of the sport versus how much money do you want to make? That's the calculation. I don't see, if you're seeing a team on the road on the second day of a back-to-back, how can you in good conscience charge money for that? You're not seeing, that's not real basketball, right? And those are the situations where everyone gets hurt. If, Derrick Rose is destroyed, is an incredibly thrilling player, we basically are robbed of probably 5 seasons of peak Derrick Rose. Why? Because he was overused. There was a really interesting argument about Porzingis this season with the Knicks, saying the Knicks were a young player with that kind of height. You cannot play him as many minutes as they were playing him. That's a really, really important point. Porzingis, those 7-footers are vulnerable, right? We know that time and time again. And when they get overplayed, think about what, we lost how many years of peak Bill Walton? How many years of, you could just go down the list. We never saw Greg Oden. I could go on. I don't know. I'm not convinced the kind of cost benefit ratio is worked out properly when it comes to basketball.
Well, the other thing is more practice time would be fun too. You mentioned like the 4 and 5 nights and the 3 and 4 nights, stuff like that. I'm amazed that they still allow that to happen. In the league, they call it a schedule loss.
Yeah.
So it's like you just look at the schedule and you're like, wow, we're on the road for 7 games in 10 days. And the 7th game is the 4th game in 5 nights. Like, cross that off. We're probably not winning. They know 3 weeks ahead of time. So if you could get rid of those, but then you could also give everybody more time to practice, because that's another thing. You'll read like in the stories about, but like the Celtics are playing well. Like, oh, what are the reasons? And Brad Stevens like, well, we had a little break there. We were able to get a couple practices in. It's like, yeah, it seems important that NBA teams should practice.
Yeah.
Sometimes they won't practice for a month because they won't have time, because they're either traveling or they're home, and the coach is trying to take it easy on them. My dream scenario, I think 70 is as realistic as we could get, maybe 72. My dream scenario would be 60. And for the playoffs, I would go best of 5 in the first round and the second round.
Yeah. I
would make it so that the home court advantage, so to take away some of the randomness, the home court advantage, the top 2 seeds for the 5 games are at home.
Yeah.
So if you're going to beat them in round 1 or 2, you're going to have to win on their court. You're going to have to win at least twice on their court, probably.
Yeah. This is the yogurt problem. Yogurt, full whole milk yogurt tastes amazing. But what people, rather than eat a small amount of amazing yogurt, people take all of the fat out of it so it tastes like crap and eat a lot more of it. Why do people do this?
Right.
This doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, it's really even hard to find whole milk yogurt in the supermarket. Everyone's buying the 0% fat yogurt, which tastes like shit, so they can eat a lot of it.
Right.
Like, it's just bananas. I have can I plug my podcast? One of my podcast episodes is about fries, but when why McDonald's changed the recipe for French fries in the 90s. And it's the same problem. They tasted really good, and we used to eat a small amount of them. And then they made them taste like cardboard, and they gave us supersized fries. It's like, who thought that was a good idea? It's like the craziest thinking that says that the volume is all that matters in the appreciation of something. And we should be thinking the opposite. Yeah, jumbo. It's like,
jumbo. So you're saying the NBA right now is giving us the jumbo NBA schedule?
Yeah, jumbo NBA, which I don't want. I want the full fat, small amount that tastes fantastic. Think the other thing they're thinking about, they're missing is the marginal. So I'm a good example of a marginal basketball fan. So I watch a very limited number of games. I don't have a team that I follow and watch every home game, right? So a good question for the NBA is, how do I get Malcolm to watch more games? Malcolm will watch more games if games are occasions and the quality of play improves. But when I accidentally tune into a game and it's like the second night of the on the road, whatever schedule loss, it just makes me think, why would I want to watch basketball? Why would I do this with my evening? But
yeah, well, I've noticed so they changed the finals a little bit. It used to be 2-3-2, and the 3 games were always Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Right. So it was 2. It was usually like Tuesday, Thursday, 2-day break, fly to the other team, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then it would end game 6 Sunday, game 7 Tuesday, something like that. So they flipped it, and they made 2-2-1-1-1, and they put more rest in it. And I think it was one of the reasons the finals were were at such a high level. Is because they almost always had 3 days off. Like the between game 4 and game 5 was 3 days, and between game 2 and game 3 I think was 3 days. And that really helps those guys, because they're going so hard in those games, and it's so hard to play basketball now. You have to run at everybody's wide open from 25 feet about to make a 3. You're sprinting constantly. You're doing these short sprints. It's got to be the best exercise. There are no fat basketball players.
People, one last point on this. People who, fans sometimes misunderstand the nature of elite performance. So if you use track runners as an example, elite track runners will run hard maybe twice a week. Probably 20% of workouts are at something close to max. Most of the
Yep.
work you do as an elite runner is you're effectively jogging. 80% of it. If you go to Kenya and you train with the Kenyans, 5 days a week, they're running at a pace that, recreational runners could join them. 2 days a week, they're blowing the doors off. And that's because the human body can only perform at a high level for a very limited amount of time in any sort of given window. And we've just thrown that insight out the door in contemporary sports. It's crazy. By the way,
My wife is obsessed with this new running app that it's called like 3-2-1, and it tells you what to do for every second. So it's like you run, you jog, then you walk, then you run hard, then you walk, and you just do it that way. So your body's never used to what's going on. She thinks it's going to revolutionize the world.
It's interval training, essentially, or what they used to call fartlek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it's interval training, but with an app playing music the whole time, and you're just kind of following the app like it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and your head's been.
Your wife is always on the cutting edge.
She always, especially with running apps, she's always way ahead of there. Hold on, we're going to take a quick break. Quick break to talk about ZipRecruiter. The key to winning the NBA is building a strong roster, right? Well, great GMs know that having the right players come from scouting in all the right places. Same goes for finding great talent in your business. Are you hiring? Do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? Posting your job in one place isn't enough anymore. For the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites, and now you can with ZipRecruiter.com. Post your job to 100 plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a magic click. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with their easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses, as featured on Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, The New York Times, TechCrunch, and CBS. Right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/BS. Once again, that is ZipRecruiter.com/BS. And speaking of my favorites, if you want to experience TVs, movies, and music with sound you can feel from a speaker you'll hardly notice, I have an idea for you. Playbase from Sonos. I can't even remember how many terrible home audio systems I've had over the years. Playbase's is great. Low profile design, practically disappears beneath your TV, and yet it fills your entire viewing room with epic home theater audio from movies, sports, TV shows, gaming, doesn't matter. Slim, low-profile Playbase adds dynamic pulse-pounding sound to whatever is playing on your TV, and it even streams your favorite music when it's off. Plus, it was created for TVs that sit on stands and furniture, so no wall mount required. One power cord, one optical cord, all it takes. The Sonos app helps you with everything. It works with almost all TV cable box and universal remotes, so the remotes you have are all you need. Trust me, everything sounds better on Playbase. See for yourself. All you have to do is go to Sonos.com to learn more about Playbase. That is Sonos.com, Sonos.com. Back to my man, Malcolm Gladwell. All right, we're back. By the way, I met just as a passing topic, Lolo Jones was on my favorite show, The Challenge, where they have the reality stars who do all these like high demand challenge events against each other. It's on MTV. So Lolo Jones is on it. And she's just demolishing everybody. And Lolo Jones was like, she hit the 9th hurdle in the Olympics that one time. But, we've seen a lot of good track and field athletes. And she's like LeBron James in this thing. And it made me think, like, imagine being Lolo Jones and you didn't even win a gold medal. And you're still like one of the best female athletes that America's probably produced in the last 15 years, right?
Uh-huh.
Like how many Lolo Jones are out there who are just going to themselves, man, like one thing, and this could happen and that, and there can't be that many, right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There is a bottomless well of athletic ability. I always feel like we're only ever scraping the surface. Like the minute you encourage the minute any sport gets any kind of traction among young people, you see a completely unexpected talent surge. So I suspect there's a whole lot of Lolo Joneses.
I wonder if esports will have that, because I've been fascinated by esports and how the shelf lives of the great players everything's compressed. Like they peak from like age 19 to 22. And then by the time they're 23, they're like on the tail end. They're like LeBron 5 years from now. All right. Couple more quick things for us to hit.
Yeah.
You were obsessed with this Brady and Giselle, this revelation that Giselle said in passing in this CBS interview that Brady had gotten a concussion in the Super Bowl.
Not just that, Bill. Concussions. She
said with the S.
I went back and watched the tape. Concussions.
Okay.
She made it sound like he has them all the time. And at this point, first of all, am I terribly surprised? Not particularly. But why? I don't understand, first of all, why that wasn't a bigger news story. First of all, because if he had a concussion last season, it was never listed on the injury report. Secondly, if he had a concussion last season, he didn't take a week off, did he? He played the next week, which is sort of surprising. But third, why isn't there a stronger drumbeat for him to retire? The issue, people say, well, his arm is still as good as it was, or his overall conditioning. It's not about the conditioning of his body below the neck. The question about him retiring is all about the condition of his brain. And if he's getting concussions at the age of 40, concussions, and playing the next week, there are so many danger signs. I do not want to see Tom Brady at 55 drooling into a cup. But that is a real possibility if he continues to do this. And the very thing that makes him such a great player is the very thing that makes it impossible for him to stop, right? He cannot be the one. He's not going to say, I'm done. The Patriots have got to sit down with him and say, this is bananas, right? You've just had one of the greatest seasons ever. You should stop. We have a replacement for you. Go out on a high note.
I'm editing all of this out of the podcast. How dare you say Tom Brady should retire? We need Tom Brady. No, who knows how many concussions he's had, because you got to go back to when he's playing high school, right?
I mean, he's gone back.
You're talking 25 years of football, and he's playing quarterback, and he's been ripped a bunch of times. And so I've talked to people about this. Most people, nobody who plays sports or who are close to people who play sports want to go on the record in any way, shape, or form on this, because it's so controversial and such a hot topic right now. But the consensus seems to be that these guys will just not say anything if it's a big game. The competitiveness just overrides everything else.
Yeah.
So Brady got a concussion in the Super Bowl, and he goes over and does the screening thing. He knows how to kind of fake the signs.
Yeah.
He tells them he's fine, and he goes back in.
Yeah.
And he's making that choice, when you have a situation, which we've had a couple times in the past, where the quarterback gets up and wobbles and almost falls over and looks like a drunk person, he shouldn't be allowed back in the game. But we've seen recently, Tate, what was that game with the quarterback last year? Was that the Miami quarterback?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
Tannehill?
Yeah.
Or Matt Moore? Matt Moore went back in.
And there was a Cam Newton thing too. Remember, where he was knocked silly?
Yeah.
Earlier in
and
the
these
season.
Guys want to stay in. They don't want to come out. And so we're entering this weird time where the athletes now have the information. So we can't say this is like pre-2010 where it's like the NFL is lying about the effects of concussion and long-term damage, all that stuff, and they're intentionally discounting studies about it and all the stuff that they did. Now we know concussions aren't great for you. We know it's not good to have repeated concussions. We know every time you get a concussion, it takes longer to recover. We have stories all the time now, like the story Sports Illustrated just did about the 72 Dolphins and Nick Bunicati and some of the guys on that team, and the fact that, it takes them 10 minutes to get dressed. All of these things are now in the public, and Brady has this information.
Yeah.
And if he gets buzzed and he decides to play, and none of the doctors and spotters can really spot the signs, at that point, what do you do? What can we do?
No, what you can do. So here, the central neurological fact that drives a lot of this is as follows: that your risk of CTE is a linear function of the number of hits you take to the head. So the longer you play, the greater your risk. It's as simple as that. This is why there's such a strong push to get rid of tackle football before your kind of teenage years, because you're adding hits and you're just increasing your long-term risk of injury. Why do that when the stakes are zero? If you're playing Pop Warner football. But so with Brady, when you're playing until you're 40, every year you play, you are just demonstrably increasing your risk of traumatic, chronic brain injury in your 40s and 50s. So I think as a general rule, you should just say people shouldn't play football past the age of 35. And that's
35. I just lost 2 Super Bowls.
Yes, you did. Even that is too generous. This is not a game. This is a game that can be played safely. I don't think it can ever be played safely, but it can be played reasonably safely only for a limited number of years. And until, by the way, there may be a point where we get a better handle on why it is some players develop CTE and others don't. And that may allow us to say that this player can play safely for longer. But until we have that understanding, I just think we're messing with people's lives. And it's not, I don't know. I feel complicit when I watch a Patriots game and I see Brady get hit, in thinking, I'm enjoying this game, and this guy could well be, impaired in 10 years, right? How are we going to feel when that happens? And why? Because we're cheering him on with this decision to play past well into his late 30s. It's just not right. It absolutely is not right.
You asked me why the Brady thing wasn't a bigger story. I think there's concussion story fatigue, as weird as that sounds. Like you mentioned Trump fatigue earlier. I think this was a big story for a couple years, and now people are used to it. The last time it felt like a really, really genuinely big deal was with Cam Newton last September, when he clearly got concussed and they didn't do anything about it. And then it just went into the 24/7 cycle. And that was almost more about, is Cam Newton being officiated differently? That there was like a sub story to the story, and it just kind of kept going and going. But you did, what'd you do? The panel last month with our friend Chris Nowinski?
Yes.
Talking about concussions and stuff. And he has now pivoted a little bit, and I want to have him on this summer because this is, obviously such an important topic, but he's now pivoted to, I probably can't convince Tom Brady to hang it up, but I can at least convince everybody that youth football should be gone.
Yeah, youth
like
football
at the very least, that is attainable, and we could all band together and figure out how to not let anybody play tackle football before they turn 15.
Yeah, I
think he's right. I think it's attainable, don't you?
I think that. Well, it's more attainable. Put it that way. I mean, you're going to have a lot of resistance in places like Texas to getting rid of Pop Warner football, but and we're also talking about junior high school football, right? What we're basically saying is that tackle football should begin in high school, and we're
saying 10th grade, basicon
Yeah.
What would happen? I think I've always felt like Texas might secede from the United States because they're already halfway there. They're on the bottom, and they have their own flag, and it feels like its own country anyway. So it's very close to becoming like Canada of the South. I think if we had youth football restrictions, that would be the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, that'd be it. They'd be like, we're out. We're starting our own country.
We're walking. Yeah,
we're not giving up youth football. Yeah, we're done. We're building our own fence to box out everybody above us and around us. Go ahead.
I was going to say you got to weigh in on Brady here. You're the Pats fan. This is your team. Should he walk away?
I think he got a concussion in the Denver playoff game the year earlier before that one too. I think he's had 2 years in a row. I think he's had concussions.
Yeah, that we know about.
Because the Denver game, he got slammed on one play and was just not the same afterwards. And it took a lot of punishment the whole game, but missed some throws that he normally makes. Like even on the 2-point conversion, just didn't see Gronk. I think at some point, I don't know the exact point, but I think he got hit. The Super Bowl is much easier to figure out when he got hit. He got knocked backwards and slammed his head on the turf, and you just knew right away. But no, I think he should have retired, to be honest. I don't think it's our right to tell people when they should go, because obviously everybody's got to come to their own conclusion on that, whether you're an athlete or a writer. I think musicians, there probably should be, after age 60, you're just not allowed to play in front of anyone anymore.
Yeah.
But
Mick Jagger should lead the way here. Mick Jagger should meet with Tom Hayes. All right, let's get together. Let's both retire, just for the sake of our own dignity.
There's this big concert at Dodger Stadium right now, and the headliners are the Eagles, who do not have Glenn Frey anymore, and Fleetwood Mac, who don't have Christine McVie, and everybody's like in their 70s, and this is a 2-day concert at Dodger Stadium apparently. But with Brady, though, I think if you're talking about long-term health, brain health, all the things that go into it, that would have been the perfect way to go out. The replacement's right there. He leaves the team in good hands. But how do you tell somebody it's time? How does he walk away from the money? How does he walk away from the limelight, the attention, the competitiveness, all that stuff?
If Belichick had sat down with him and said, I think you're done. You can still play, but you're risking your health. I don't think Belichick had that conversation with him. I think if he did, if Kraft and Belichick sat down with him and said, for your own sake, you need to quit, that's a different story.
No great player has ever walked away from one of their best games ever. Nobody's ever, like, the way he played in that Super Bowl was about as well as he's ever played, and it was one of the great performances ever by a football player. It would be just so unorthodox for somebody to say, like, I'm good. Like Jordan did it kind of in 98.
Yeah.
That wasn't the height of his powers, but it was a great last moment to walk out on. And then the lockout happens, and he cut his finger, and the Bulls were breaking up, and he couldn't walk away. He came back. Ali came back. All these guys come back. They almost have to know that they suck before, or that not that they suck, but that they're just not at the same level. And then that's when they pack it in. They almost have to get knocked out, so to speak, as a boxing thing. But I just feel like Brady's got to get knocked out, not figuratively, like not with a concussion, but he's got to.
It's to see evidence of his
suck in a playoff game. Yeah. He has to have his Peyton Manning's last season kind of season almost. Because I think Peyton Manning would have played forever. He wanted to come back. He was trying to go with the Rams and a couple other teams. He didn't want to leave.
Just insanity.
All right, let's talk about white people and why they love golf, not without stepping on your new podcast too much.
Well, my podcast it starts out with that, but it ultimately what I was interested in is resolving this puzzle of when I come to LA and I drive through LA and I see all of these massive, gorgeous private golf courses, and I can never figure out how they exist. How do you have 300 acres in Beverly Hills as a private golf course? Aren't the taxes on that unbelievable? So that was what prompted the podcast, but it led to a kind of broader thing about how golf is a crazy game. It's insanity. It's a game that you need at least 200 acres, and you can't have more than like 70 people playing at any one time. And you have to spend millions of dollars keeping it totally pristine. And it's a sport you would have dreamt up in medieval times when you had like slaves who could work the course, right? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it doesn't. And the only reason golf continues to exist in its private form is it's just massively subsidized by all of us. I only talked about one subsidy on my podcast. There's all kinds. I won't even go into it. It's insanely complicated. But the tax games that are available to golf course developers are so outrageous that we are all basically subsidizing these things. And I'm a runner. Runners always have this incredible love-hate relationship with golf because we see a golf course and we think, that looks like a great thing to run on. and I'm like, the very least they should do is open these courses up for people to run and walk and play Frisbee on them like 4 days a week. That's
interesting.
That was ultimately in my podcast. That was my solution for the LA problem. And that is the problem with Brentwood Country Club or LA Country Club or whatever isn't just that they're massively subsidized by the taxpayers of Los Angeles. It's that they have a barbed wire fence around it, right? Why? It's a park. If you want to take a subsidy from the public, you should let the public take a walk in your park, play golf during the day, and weekends and evenings are for the tax-paying public. That strikes me as a very good, as a nice compromise, right? It's amazing to me though that people in LA, a place with no parks, people put up with this. Or I was in Atlanta, and there's a big park in Atlanta. It's got a huge golf course and then a tiny little park for everyone else attached to it. And I was like, why do people put up with this? There are hundreds of people cramped, in this little cramped space trying to get some exercise. And then there's this massive, gorgeous golf course with like 25 people on it. That's 5 times the size. It's just insanity. Why the golf's got a gun to the head of the American public. I don't know why we put up with it.
And it's even crazier if you live here and the lack of space for anything.
Yeah.
So, my daughter plays soccer and she's been on this team for a long time. And the coach, we were on this club, and, the boys teams always get the preferential treatment, but there's no fields, right? So if there's fields, if you have a field, if you have access to a field, the boys always get the better, the better times, the better days, all that stuff. So we started our own club. That's like a girls only club, and we got access to a field, and that was great. But it was so complicated. And the thing that all of us were staggered by was that there was just no place for kids to run around.
Yeah.
And then you look at it, and as you said, there's like what, 15 golf courses here?
Yeah.
But we have maybe, I don't know, 10 places that a team could play soccer, unless you're using like one of the high school fields or something.
Within walking distance of your house, Bill, there is a 250-acre golf course, which has probably 300 members and which receives a tax subsidy from the taxpayers of Los Angeles that's probably worth $50 million a year. That's outrageous.
So do you think rich people, because rich people like playing golf, those are the people pushing this through and taking care of the golf courses?
That's what the podcast is all about. Is I tell the story of how it happened, that rich people hijacked the system in Los Angeles. But it's not just Los Angeles. It's like, but I'm totally right.
Yeah,
like
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And you think about it, you have, exercise for young people if you had to make a list of things that would make this country better, that's got to be in the top 10. It's a crucially important thing.
I would say top 3.
Top 3.
Yeah.
And you have a system, you have to drive, how long? You probably have to drive halfway across town to get to half the games that your daughter plays. It's ridiculous. It's like,
well, you also have, when here they have this place called Pan Pacific Park, which is right in the middle. It's near the Grove. It's in the heart of like LA, Hollywood. It's this big park. It's this big, great park. And somehow that park houses all of these different Little League baseball games, ranging from like age 5 all the way through age 12. All these soccer games. You go there on a Saturday and there's 15 soccer games going on at once. Everybody's jammed on these fields next to each other. It almost looks like a bowling alley.
Yeah.
And it's because there are no parks anywhere.
Yeah.
And all the parents here know where all the parks are. There's only a couple of them. But yeah, it's crazy. And meanwhile, as you said, there's a golf course you drive by it, and it's pretty much completely empty.
250 acres and there's I think 8 private golf courses or 9 private golf courses in LA County. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, that's amazing. And there's more on Revisionist History.
Revisionist History.
Yeah.
You did it. You did season 2.
I did season 2.
I forgave you for not doing it for The Ringer, but you had a better friendship with Jacob. I couldn't trump it. You just were better friends with him. We never talked about
it's a big tent.
We never talked about Bill Maher.
Oh yes.
You want to do that quickly and then we'll leave?
Yes.
All right. Your thoughts on the Bill Maher N-word controversy, because I was equally as fascinated with it as you were.
I am, and I am sick of N-word controversies. If you want to talk about what the racial problem in this country is, the racial problem in this country has to do with structural inequality and ways in which the system is rigged against people of color. That's the problem. It's about power, right? The problem is not that liberals in West LA occasionally misuse the N-word. Like, no one thinks that Bill Maher is some crazy racist. I don't particularly like Bill Maher, but, you know, the last thing he is a racist. So he used that word inappropriately. Like, get over it. That is not what there are 100 more serious problems to do with race in this country. And when we make this mistake of going nuts over these little slips of the tongue, what we've done is we have trivialized the entire race conversation. We've made it all the more difficult to talk about the stuff that really matters. I'll tell you what matters is Black teenage kids getting shot by cops. That strikes me as something we should get outraged about. You know, some guy who lives in Brentwood, so, you know, who says the N-word inadvertently. I'm sorry, you know, as someone who is part Black, I wasn't personally injured by that. I have recovered from the Bill Maher N-word, right? And so have other Black people in this country. Like, it's just so, the conversations we have about race are so surreal and so completely beside the point. Anyway, that's my...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the one good thing came out of it, I thought Ice Cube, in a very short amount of time, described why that word shouldn't be used in the best way I'd ever heard it. And I have it here. I'm going to just read it quickly. He said, he's basically like, white people aren't allowed to use that word anymore.
Yeah.
Was his thesis. And then he was like, it's a word that has been used against us. It's like a knife. You can use it as a weapon or you can use it as a tool. It's when you use it as a weapon against us by white people, and we're not going to let that happen again because it's not cool. That's our word and you can't have it back.
Yeah.
I was like, there you go.
No.
That's succinctly described why that word should not be used in passing by, you know, somebody on their HBO show who's white.
Yeah, totally agree.
But at the same time, I agree with every point you said, though. Like the amount of time and energy spent for 4 days trying to figure out, well, it's like it's a conversation that is the appetizer for what the actual conversation should be.
Yeah. The lengths we will go in this country to distract ourselves from confronting real issues around race never cease to amaze me. That's to me the lesson of that whole little tempest in a teapot.
Well, I think it's a conversation that's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it goes. I don't know how it plays out, but I think with everything that's going on politically in this country, it's anyway, now I'm bummed out. I was in a great mood this whole podcast. Now I feel empty inside.
You too.
All right,
go back
Malcolm
to your
Gladwell.
Yes.
Are you working on another book, by the way? What's going on with you?
I have just started a new book, which I will do until I have to do season 3 of my podcast. But yeah, I'm back in book mode for a couple of months.
Wow. You
excited
reactivated it.
I have reactivated. Yes.
You're back in the basement with Alfred the Butler. You put on your bat suit, write another book.
I'm trying to be a 2-sport star. Podcasts and books. That's what I'm trying to do. Trying to be Bo Jackson here.
Malcolm Gladwell. Oh, as always, a pleasure. Hopefully by the time people listen to this, the Porzingis will be in the Celtics and I'll be taping another podcast.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill. Bye-bye.
All right, that's it for the show. Thanks so much to Hotel Tonight. That's the app that helps you find amazing hotel deals at the last minute, up to 7 days in advance. Perfect for a spontaneous getaway or indulging in a little staycation. Booking on Hotel Tonight gives you the freedom and flexibility to play things by ear while knowing you'll score a great price and a great place to stay. Get in on those killer last minute deals and download the Hotel Tonight app right now. And also thanks to Playbase from Sonos. Remember, they add pulse-pounding sound to whatever's playing, from movies and sports to TV, gaming, music, whatever you love, with a low-profile design that practically disappears from beneath your TV. Setup is a breeze. You only need one power cord, one optical cord, and the Sonos app guides you from there. Everything sounds better on Playbase. See for yourself. Go to Sonos.com to learn more. Sonos.com. And don't forget to check out theringer.com because we have a bunch of stuff, including, I'm sure more NBA stories are breaking as I'm talking right now. Read all of our stuff there. Check out the NBA Draft Guide. And don't forget, I'm on Cousin Sal's Against All Odds podcast to talk about NBA draft props. One of my favorites. It'll be good. Cousin Sal. Subscribe to that one now. And we will be back on Wednesday with the third BS podcast of the week. We're going to do 4 this week. NBA. Gotta love it.